Hello, my crafty friends. Um, I know some of you were asking about spinning when I was talking about spinning roving and spinning wool. And Meridell had some roving and was asking about spinning it. I told her I would make her a spindle and then I would do a live stream on how to spin with it. And so I decided I would go ahead and make the spindle now and mail it to her. And then when she gets it, then I'll do a live stream about it, about how to use it. I got these parts at Hobby Lobby. You can get 4 of these toy wheels for $3.99. If you use your coupon, then it's, like $2.50 or something. And then you can get these little cup hooks for $1.99. There's 10 of those. And you can get dowel rods. Now, I had dowel rods, so I didn't go ahead and buy them. But you can buy a package of like 10 dowel rods that will go with this. You have to make sure they're the same size, that they have the 3/8 inch holes, and that so you can kind of tell by fitting them in there whether they're going to fit in or not. So you can buy for, let's see, 4, 7, 9 for $9. You can make 4 spindles, or if you spend another $4, you can make 8 spindles, because these two things come in packs of 10 and these come in packs of 4. So they're not very expensive to make, but I guess it's more expensive if you're spending $9 and you're only making 1. But I'm always making spindles because every time I teach a class, I take spindles and I give them away. So this toy wheel, one of the things you'll need to do, and it's easier to do it at the beginning, is to carve a notch in it. And I'll be honest with you, usually I use my Ginsu knife from the kitchen to carve a notch in it, but I didn't have that with me right now, so I'm going to use this little, what do you call this thing? Coping saw, is that what it is? And you just want to make a straight line in it. And if you just keep going down, what you're doing is making a notch that your yarn can sit in, and kind of then after you've done it straight, go from side and side of that straight line just a little bit. Okay, now I made this notch probably bigger than it really has to be, but when you're first spinning, your yarn's going to be big. It's not going to be real tiny and fine, so you might need a bigger notch. So we're just going to go ahead and use this notch right here, and then you sand it, because you don't want it catching on your yarn and messing up the fibers. It's not hard to do. And you want to make sure you sand from the top like that and from the bottom like this, as well as across, so when that yarn is coming through here, it doesn't catch. Same thing there. Right. I usually use a smaller piece of sandpaper. It's just easier to handle. I don't know why I got that big one. I guess I was just in a hurry. And if you go lean into this side and then lean to that side, that way you can make sure that the notch is smooth. It doesn't have to be, perfect. I try to make them as nice as I can, but it mainly just needs to be there and be smooth. Okay, so now we've got our notch, and then you've got your dowel rod. And even when you buy a set of dowel rods and they're the same size, they're not really the same size. These two, you can tell if you look, this one is quite a bit bigger than that one. And they came in the same bag. This one fits really loose in here. This one won't even go in hardly. But a tighter one will work better than a loose one. So I'm just going to sand this down so that it'll go in there. And you want to sand it however much it takes to get it to go in there, but you don't want to sand it, you know, more than it takes, because you want it to fit pretty snugly. Now, if you've got one that's tight and you just sand a certain amount of it, and then you slide your wheel down, you won't even need to glue it in. You just slide it on there and you're good. Okay. Once I got it going, though, it went down pretty far. So it goes down that far real easy. I typically don't want them that long, you know, to go down that far. So I'm just going to move it back up here. But it doesn't matter. It'll be fine. I'm probably not going to glue this, because when I send it to MERI I, it'll be a lot easier if I can send it to her like this than sending it to her like this. Whoops. Sending it to her like this. So MERI, when you get this, you may want to glue it in place. But one thing you're going to need to remember is that when you glue it, you need to have that notch in a specific spot. And I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. The back curve of this cup hook needs to be lined up with that notch. So it would be like this. See, there's the notch and there's the back of the hook. And that will make it the easiest for you to spin on. Now I'm going to take this back off because it'll be easier for me to screw this on if it's not on there. And I'm going to take my pokey tool, and you have to, the more centered you are, the better off you're going to be. And I admit, I do just kind of eyeball it. And I just use my pokey tool. And that just helps this get started. And then I take the screw, and I usually hold the screw still and screw the wooden dowel onto the screw. It's just easier to turn the dowel until you get it in there. And I'm still really turning the dowel. And you want to take it down as far as you can. If you start noticing this fixing to split, then stop where you're at. But on a 3/8 inch dowel, you're probably not going to split it. I've made some with 1/4 inch dowels, and they're easier to split. Also, I'm using pine, and pine is soft, so it allows that to go in easier. It sands easier. You know, a lot of times people want to make them out of oak because it's pretty, but now I've gotten close to almost as far as I can, and so it's not, let me find my pliers. It's not wanting to turn. Well, there we go. I got it in there now. Okay, so we've got our hook on there. Uh-oh. That was a mistake. So I'm just going to take it back out, because I forgot the hook's bigger than the hole. See, you got to think. It's been a while since I made one of these. Okay. Now I'm going to screw it back in there. I'm going to stick just a tad of glue in there. I can't tell if I'm getting any glue out. No. Okay. Let me unclog it here real quick. Okay. Just put a little bit of glue in that hole. And then go ahead and screw it back in. And then adjust this. And what I usually do is put my glue right here on the shaft where I want it, and then I pull this down gently over the top of the glue. And that way it pulls the glue down, you know, into this, and it'll work really well. And you just There you go. So now you've got a spindle. Now, it's easier to work with if this end is pointed. And this one has a little bit of a flaw. So I'm going to go ahead and sand this whole thing a little bit. And I'm going to sand it down here. You don't want it so slick that it won't hold on to your cloth, to your yarn, because it's easier to spin if this is not really, really slick. So let me sand it just a little here. I'm just trying to sand down mostly where that ridge is. And it's not important that it be completely gone. It's just, I don't want it as much as it is. Most of them are rounder than this. They don't have this little flaw. So you don't have to worry about this too much. This one just did. Okay, I think it's fine. Like this, I may sand it off some more before I actually send it to Mary. But the next thing that we need to do is to taper the end. And I usually use an X-Acto knife, a regular X-Acto knife, but I don't have one here, so I'm just going to use this. You can use wood carving tools if you have them. I have some of those too, but I didn't think to bring them out here. And I'm just taking a little bit off all the way around. Oops. We just want to make it pointy, and it's easier to do this than to try to sand it to a point. If you're afraid of a knife, then just sand it to a point, but it will take a lot longer to do that. This way we're just kind of getting it there, and then we will we'll sand it and make it smooth after we get it. So you can see it's not really at a point, but it's narrowing. So I'm going to go ahead and work on sanding it some. If you're not used to sanding stuff, I'm going to tell you, it makes a mess. So be prepared to clean up little bits of wood everywhere. I usually do this over a trash can. I don't usually do it over my table. But I didn't want to try to figure out how to set up a camera over my trash can. So I'm just doing it like this. And it's getting pointier. Another reason to put this little point on it, you don't have to, but another reason to do that is because then you can support it to spin if you choose to. Most people don't, but you could if it's got a point on it. Also, when you're flipping it to make it spin, it's easier to flip it from a point than from a flattened off area. So there are several reasons why this is helpful to have there. But I've seen lots of spindles that don't have it pointed down here. And so if you don't want to mess with that, you can still spin without doing that. And it doesn't have to have a real point on it, just pointed-ish. See? I don't know if you can see that or not. And it's not perfect, but it was made in about 5 minutes, so okay, 15 minutes. But anyway, that's how you make it. It's not hard. Once you get one made, it takes a lot of practice to spin on it, but it's not actually hard to do that either. It just takes practice. I'm going to move this up here, and I'm going to sand it a little bit more. One other thing I do, and I don't do this all the time, I've made plenty of them and given them away to the kids at demonstrations or whatever, to people who come and ask me to teach them how to spin, that are just like this, that I haven't waxed. But for my own, I like to put beeswax on them. And it's real easy. If you have a heat gun, it's even easier. You just rub it on there, and then you heat it with the heat gun and let it melt, and then you can rub it in really good. And that just makes it look nicer. It kind of protects the wood, and that wax is not slick like if you varnished it, it would be. And that's easier to spin if it's not really, really slick. Okay. So there's our spindle. And I've spun a lot of wool, a lot of spinning on one just like this. Or let me show you. Actually, I'm going to pause just a second and get out a few so I can show you different ways that you can make them. Okay, just want to show you some different kinds of spindles. Most of these I've made. This one I bought, and I bought it, I think I bought it off of Etsy from a guy who made them. This is his trademark or his signature, but I don't remember who he was. It spins beautifully. I love it. It's very well balanced spindle. This is one I made just for kicks because I wanted to make a steampunk spindle. It's not very well balanced, and part of it is because of the way the hook is backed off like that. That's part of it not being as well balanced. But the more cop you get on there, the better it spins. But it is working. I am spinning yarn on it, and it's just fun, and it was fun to make. It's fun to look at. This is one I bought that I've been spinning cotton on, and it's full. Once it gets this full, you need to redo it, but it's a very small one, and it's perfect for spinning cotton, just sitting in my recliner and spinning it from the seed just for fun. But I do need to take that off and start over. Here's one I started spinning cotton on that Hannah made for me. And you see this one it doesn't have a hook, it has a notch. And that's another way to do it if you don't want to put that hook in there. Also, this one has the whirl at the bottom. So when you spin it, it spins, like that. And well, she spins it from up here. But anyway, until you get more on it there, it spins like that. Anyway, that's another way you can make them, is make them bottom whirl. There's top whirl, bottom whirl, and then there are mid whirl spindles that you can, this would be like a mid whirl spindle. You build your cop right in the center. This is a Jelligan. This is a Scottish spindle. Hannah and I made them. I didn't have anything on mine, so I got hers to show you so you could see. And you spin it the same way you do the others. You just spin it, spin it like that and build your yarn. It just looks different. There's a lady on YouTube, and I don't remember her name or the name of her channel, but the video is called Spin Like You're Scottish. And she's got Spin Like a Viking and some other things. Anyway, she is a hoot. If you're interested at all in spinning, or history, you just need to go watch her because she's fun. But she's the one that made us inspired to build this spindle. Here's one that Hannah made me out of a chopstick and some sculpty clay, and it spins nicely. I've got quite a bit of yarn on there, and I'm spinning it from a Puni Rolag that I made on a blending board, and I'll do a video on how to use a blending board sometime. But these are nice to spin from because the fiber's contained, and it's real easy to spin from these. I really enjoy this. This is wool and silk blend. The little color splotches are silk, and the gray is wool, Shetland wool. Here's a bottom whirl spindle that somebody gave me. It was also, I don't know if they bought this one or if they made it, but the lady I bought my drum carder from gave me this one. Hannah likes spinning with a bottom whirl spindle. I like a top whirl better. And this is a Rolag of Rambouillet wool. And then here's some little ones that we've made, just like this one that I made, except it's small. And here's one that's a little bit bigger. But this is a different kind of toy wheel that you can get at Hobby Lobby. And this one we put an O-ring around the top and the bottom to hold this thing in place. And I'm spinning silk on this one. This is the silk top that I'm spinning on it. Here's another one that Hannah made that has a hook just put into the wood. And you do it with a half hitch instead of just looping it around. Let me find one that's got, so I can show you what here. I'll just use this one to show you what a half hitch is. On this Jelligan, you bring it from across, and then you go across that X on the bottom, well, around and across the X on the bottom, and then up, and then you make a half hitch. And a half hitch is just put the yarn around your finger and pull it over. So it's not really a knot, it's just looped around, and then you spin. And then when you're ready to wind on what you've spun, you just undo that loop and wrap it around and then put it back on. And if you're leaving it, you're not going to be spinning for a day or two or longer, I would do a double one on there, just like on these. If you're not spinning for a while, I would wrap it around the hook several times. Here's one that has a notch rather than an actual hook. And I don't know if you can see the difference, but there's a notch versus a hook. And you do a half hitch around that just the same. All of these will spin. Here's one a friend made me, and she made it like these, but she varnished hers and she put beads on top to make it pretty. It spins great. So there are lots of them, and most of these we made ourselves, and we spin on them all. This one I made out of Sculpty clay and beads and a bracelet. This is a wooden bracelet, and I just filled it full of the Sculpty clay and then put the beads in there, and I pushed the hole through it, and then I took the dowel rod back out and put it in the oven and baked the Sculpty clay, and then I glued the dowel rod in there. So that was fun too. This one's pretty heavy, so it's good, to do a heavier weight yarn on, not the really fine yarn like we're spinning on most of these. But anyway, I hope I've got you intrigued and interested. There are more kinds of spindles. There are Turkish spindles, and I have one somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly where it is. But it has this thing on the bottom, an X, and the way you wind your cop on there, when you get through, you just pull those things out, and you've got a ball. That's a really cool one too, but they're heavier, and they're bottom whirl spindles, so I don't spin on it much. I think, most people like either a top whirl or a bottom whirl better. I like the top whirl better because that's what I learned to spin on. Hannah likes the bottom whirl better because I think the one that she learned to spin good on was a bottom whirl. And so, she had access to a lot of them, and that's what she chose for herself. So, excuse me. Anyway, here's a quick little video on how to make yourself a spindle. And we'll do a video later, and I may do a video and a live stream. I don't know, but we'll at least do a live stream so you can ask questions and I can answer them, and on how to spin with one of these. We'll do that after I send this one to Mary, and she's got it where she can practice on it. So God bless you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.